You've entered void of rules, where chaos reigns and darkness consumes all. In this twisted realm where all laws have crumbled, only one rule remains, and those who break it are cast into eternal digital oblivion. The rule is simple: subscribe. We're almost at 7,000 corrupted souls, but the void hungers for more. Our goal is 10,000 subscribers before this year bleeds into darkness. Will you join our legion, or face the consequences of defying the void? Now let's dive into today's story. The first thing Father Ezekiel Stone noticed when he entered the sealed room beneath the Vatican archives was the smell. Not sulphur or rot, as the old text described, but something far worse. The scent of a hospital room where someone had died alone. Antiseptic and abandonment. The second thing he noticed was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but silence as a presence, as though something had swallowed all the noise in the world and was holding it captive. The third thing was Naomi Castellano's eyes. Completely black. No white, no iris, no reflection of the single bulb that hung from the ceiling. Just two pools of absolute darkness that seemed to drink in what little light existed in that terrible place. She sat perfectly still, in a chair bolted to the floor, her weathered hands folded on the metal table like a schoolteacher waiting for a tardy student. She wore a simple blue dress, and her grey hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She could have been anyone's grandmother, the kind who kept hard candies in her purse and never missed Sunday Mass. Except for the eyes and the smile. "Hello, Ezekiel," she said, but the voice wasn't hers. It was layered, somehow, as though multiple people were speaking in perfect unison, their tones blending into something that made Stone's teeth ache. "I've been waiting for you." Stone had been an exorcist for 20 years. He'd performed the ritual 43 times. He'd seen young men speak in languages they'd never learned. He'd watched a teenage girl lift a hospital bed with one hand. He'd felt the temperature in a room drop 30 degrees in seconds. He'd seen scratch marks appear on walls and crosses turn upside down without anyone touching them. But he'd never had a demon greet him by name before the interrogation even began. Bishop Silas Moretti stood in the corner, his olive complexion turned ashen in the dim light. He'd flown in from Florence specifically for this, had pulled strings Stone didn't even know existed to arrange this meeting. Beside Stone sat Dr. Judith Alvarez, a psychiatrist the Vatican kept on retainer for cases like this. She'd set up her recording equipment with steady hands, but Stone could see the slight tremor in her fingers as she pressed the record button. "Father Stone," she said quietly, her Argentinian accent soft but clipped with professional distance. "For the record, can you state the date and time?" Stone checked his watch. "It's 11:47 in the morning, Wednesday, October 14th, 2025. We're in Archive Room 7 beneath the Vatican Secret Archives." "And can you identify the subject?" "Naomi Castellano, age 73. Born in Barcelona, moved to Madrid at age 19. Widowed for 12 years. 3 children, 8 grandchildren. Attended daily mass at the Cathedral of St. Mary for 41 years without missing a single day." Stone paused, looking at the thing wearing Naomi's face, until 3 weeks ago. "Tell them what happened 3 weeks ago, Ezekiel," the entity said, still smiling. "Tell them how I found you." Stone's jaw tightened. Mrs. Castellano collapsed during confession. When the priest, Father Emmanuel Costa, tried to help her, she opened her eyes, and they were black. She spoke in a voice that wasn't hers and said, "Tell Ezekiel Stone I'm ready to talk now." Father Costa didn't know who I was. Neither did Mrs. Castellano. We'd never met. "But I knew you," the entity said. "I've known you for a very long time." Dr. Alvarez leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Castellano, can you hear me?" "Oh, she can hear you, Doctor. She hears everything. She's screaming right now, actually. Though you can't hear it. Screaming and screaming. in the small, dark place where I've pushed her consciousness. It's quite unpleasant for her." Alvarez's professional mask cracked for just a moment, a flash of horror crossing her features before she controlled it. "I'm addressing the entity currently in control. What do we call you?" "Names have power, Doctor, but you may call me Apollyon, from the Greek apollimi, meaning to destroy or to lose utterly. Though I've always found the translation lacks nuance. Destruction implies violence, chaos. What I do is much more surgical than that." Stone pulled out a leather journal and opened it to a marked page. "6 months ago, I received an envelope at my residence in Rome. No return address. Inside were photocopies of documents from the 1890s. Documents that, according to Vatican records, were destroyed in 1898. "But they weren't destroyed," Apollyon said pleasantly. "Just hidden. The church has always been better at hiding than destroying." "The documents," Stone continued, his voice steady despite the anxiety clawing at his chest, "detailed the possession and death of Sister Magdalene Rousseau, a French nun who was on the path to canonization. She performed 3 documented miracles. In July of 1895, she healed a man named Pierre Dubois, who'd been blind since birth. Witnesses reported that she simply placed her hands over his eyes and prayed, and when she removed her hands, he could see. The diocese investigated and found no evidence of fraud. A genuine miracle," Apollyon confirmed, "the first of 3. In December of 1895, during a famine, she multiplied 7 loaves of bread to feed an entire village, over 200 people. The documentation includes testimony from the mayor, the local doctor, and 17 other witnesses." "They were quite hungry," Apollyon said. "The miracle kept them alive through winter. And in March of 1897, she healed a 10-year-old girl named Sophie Marchand, who'd been crippled since age 4. The child walked for the first time in 6 years." Stone looked up from the journal. The Vatican was preparing her canonization. She was 28 years old, beloved by her community, known for her charity and devotion. "She was extraordinary," Apollyon agreed. "Truly one of the brightest lights I've ever encountered." Then, on April 3rd, 1897, while performing what would have been her 4th miracle, healing a dying child, witnesses reported that Sister Magdalene's eyes turned black. She began speaking in Aramaic, ancient Greek, and languages no one could identify. She revealed secrets about people in the crowd, things she couldn't possibly have known. Private sins, hidden shames. Stone turned the page, though he'd memorized every word weeks ago. The possession lasted 17 days. 3 priests attempted exorcism. All 3 failed. On April 20th, during a 4th attempt, Sister Magdalene, or the thing inside her, spoke for 6 hours straight, revealing details about historical events that were later verified, describing places she'd never been, reciting texts that wouldn't be discovered until decades later. Then, she seized and died. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure. "Her heart did fail," Apollyon said. "Hearts tend to do that when they break." Dr. Alvarez had been taking notes, her pen moving rapidly across her pad. "You're claiming to be the same entity that possessed Sister Rousseau?" "Claiming? No, Doctor, I'm the same entity, and I've possessed 23 holy men and women throughout history. Magdalene was simply one of the most memorable." Bishop Moretti finally spoke from his position near the door, his voice hoarse. "Why are you here? Why did you arrange this meeting?" "Ah, Bishop Moretti. How is your brother, by the way? Still drinking himself to death in that apartment in Naples? Still calling you every few months, begging for money you send, despite knowing he'll spend it on whiskey?" Moretti's face went white. "How do you—" "I know many things, Bishop. I know that Dr. Alvarez's mother died of cancer 14 months ago, while the good doctor was at a conference in Boston building her career. I know that she never told anyone about her mother's final words. passed along by a nurse 3 hours too late. Tell Judith I'm proud of her. I know that Dr. Alvarez sometimes wakes at 3 in the morning, wondering if her mother died, thinking she didn't care enough to be there. Alvarez had gone completely still, her pen frozen mid-stroke. And I know, Apollyon continued, turning those black eyes back to Stone, that Father Ezekiel Stone became a priest 23 years ago, 6 months after he killed a woman named Rebecca Foster and her 2 children, Emma and Jonathan, ages 7 and 4. I know that he was driving drunk on a Saturday night in August, that he ran a red light, and that his father's law firm made the charges disappear with a settlement and non-disclosure agreements. The room spun. Stone gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles going white. I know, Apollyon said softly, almost gently, that you see their faces every night before you sleep, that you've spent 23 years trying to save enough souls to balance the scales, that you're terrified it will never be enough. Stop, Stone whispered. But that's why you're here, Ezekiel. That's why I chose you. Because you, of all people, understand what it means to carry unbearable weight. Because you know that some sins don't wash away, no matter how much you pray. Dr. Alvarez found her voice first. This is manipulation. Classic psychological warfare designed to destabilize us emotionally before the interrogation even begins. Is it manipulation if it's true, Doctor? Apollyon tilted Naomi's head, bird-like. You can verify everything I've said. The nurse's name was Patricia Delgado. She works at the Hospital General de Mexico now. You could call her. She'd remember your mother's last words. Enough, Moretti said, his voice shaking. We didn't come here for this. Then why did you come, Bishop? What did you hope to gain from interrogating a demon? Apollyon leaned back in the chair, Naomi's elderly body moving with an unnatural fluidity. Did you think you'd learn the secrets of hell, the plans of the adversary? Did you think you'd gain some tactical advantage in your so-called spiritual war? Stone forced himself to breathe, to focus. The entity was right. This was manipulation designed to throw them off balance. He'd studied the tactics, knew the patterns. Demons attacked credibility first, then confidence, then faith. But knowing the pattern didn't make it hurt less. Let's establish some ground rules, Stone said, his voice steadier than he felt. You've demonstrated that you know things you shouldn't. That's noted. But we're here to ask questions, and you agreed to answer them. That was the arrangement. Did I? Apollyon smiled wider. I don't recall agreeing to anything. I recall demanding this meeting. I recall possessing this poor woman specifically to gain your attention. I recall making you come to me. But agreement? No, Ezekiel. You're here because I wanted you here. Everything happening in this room is happening because I orchestrated it. Then why? Stone leaned forward. If you're in control, if this is all your design, what do you gain from answering our questions? Now you're asking the right questions. I gain truth, Father. I gain the spreading of uncomfortable truths that will plant seeds of doubt in fertile minds. I gain the satisfaction of watching faith crumble under the weight of reality. That's not an answer, Alvarez interjected. That's a villain's monologue. If you're so intelligent, so calculating, give us something substantive. Apollyon laughed, and the sound made Stone's skin crawl. It was Naomi's laugh, but wrong, like hearing familiar music played in a minor key. Very well, Doctor. Let me be substantive. I arranged this interrogation because I want you to document it. I want you to record every word, compile your findings, present them to your superiors. I want this conversation to spread through the Vatican, through religious institutions, through the minds of believers everywhere. And I want them to doubt. Doubt what? Moretti asked. Everything. Their priests, their faith, their own salvation. I want them to wonder if the person giving them communion is compromised. I want them to question whether their good deeds matter. I want them to lay awake at night wondering if demons walk among them, wearing the faces of saints. Stone felt something cold settle in his stomach. You want us to be your messengers? Exactly. I could simply possess people and cause chaos, yes. That's the crude approach. But chaos creates unity. It drives people together against the common enemy. No, what I want is subtler. I want to corrode faith from within. I want believers to become paranoid, suspicious, divided. And what better way than to have respected Vatican officials document an interrogation with a demon that reveals uncomfortable truths they can neither fully accept nor completely dismiss? Then we won't document it, Moretti said. We'll end this now. You'll try, Apollyon agreed, but you've already recorded 20 minutes. Dr. Alvarez's equipment has captured everything, and you can't unhear what I've already told you about yourselves. The seeds are planted, Bishop. They're already growing. Stone closed his eyes briefly, gathering himself. The demon was right about one thing. They couldn't unhear this. But that didn't mean they had to let it control the narrative. Tell us about Sister Magdalene, Stone said. Tell us exactly how you possessed her. Ah, yes, beautiful Magdalene. Where should I begin? Begin with the truth. Apollyon was quiet for a moment, and in that silence, Stone heard something else. A faint sound like wind through a distant tunnel. Then, the entity spoke again, and its voice had changed, become almost wistful. Magdalene was 26 when I first noticed her. She'd performed her first miracle, the healing of the blind man, and the village was celebrating. She stood in the center of a crowd of grateful people, and they were praising her. Blessed Magdalene, they called her. Holy Magdalene. And she smiled. Oh, how she smiled. There's nothing wrong with smiling, Alvarez said. There is when you're smiling at your own holiness, Doctor. Magdalene performed that miracle through faith, through being an empty vessel for divine power. But in that moment, surrounded by praise, something shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. She began to think, I am holy. I am blessed. God chose me because I am special. Stone shook his head. One moment of pride doesn't open the door to possession. You're right. It was a crack, nothing more. But cracks can be widened. Over the next 2 years, I whispered to her. Not in words, you understand. I don't speak to my prey in obvious ways. I simply encouraged certain thoughts. When she performed her second miracle, I made sure she noticed how people looked at her with awe. When she prayed, I helped her feel just a bit superior to those who prayed less fervently. When she served the poor, I planted the small, subtle thought, I'm better than they are, more righteous, more devoted. But the documentation shows she was humble, Moretti protested. Her diary entries from that period are full of prayers for humility, of crediting God for everything. Yes, Apollyon said, she prayed for humility because some part of her recognized the pride growing inside her. She fought it. I'll give her that, she fought magnificently. But pride is insidious, Bishop. It wears the mask of righteousness. She could pray for humility while simultaneously believing she deserved to pray for humility because she was self-aware enough to recognize her own faults. Do you see? Even her attempts to be humble became a source of pride. Stone did see, and it terrified him. He'd spent 23 years trying to be good enough, holy enough, devoted enough to atone for what he'd done. But wasn't that its own form of pride? Thinking he could earn forgiveness through works? Tell us about April 3rd, Stone said quietly. The day of the possession. She was healing a child. Little Mark Beaumont, age 8, dying of consumption. The family had begged her to come. She knelt beside his bed, placed her hands on his fevered forehead, and prayed. And the prayer was working, Father. Divine power was flowing through her, healing the boy. She felt it, that golden warmth, that confirmation that she was chosen, special, holy. Apollyon paused. and Naomi's face took on an expression of what might have been sadness. And in that moment she thought, I am healing this child. Through my faith, through my devotion, through my purity, I am saving his life. Not God is healing this child through me. Not I am merely the vessel, but I am doing this. And the door opened. Just like that? Alvarez asked. Just like that, Doctor. The moment she claimed credit, the moment she forgot she was merely a channel, I walked through. She felt me enter. Oh, the look on her face, the horror when she realized what she'd done. She tried to close the door, tried to force me out, but it was too late. I was inside and I was so very hungry. Stone felt sick. What happened to the child? I finished the healing. Apollyon smiled. Surprised? Marc Beaumont lived. He survived consumption and went on to become a carpenter in Lyon. Died in 1953 at age 64. I healed him because I wanted Magdalene to feel the full weight of what happened. She had genuinely performed a miracle, had saved a child's life, and in doing so had damned herself. That's cruel beyond measure, Moretti whispered. That's the point, Bishop. That's always been the point. For the next hour, they questioned the entity about the nature of possession, about the spiritual realm, about the hierarchy of demons. Apollyon answered with a candour that felt obscene, describing hell not as the fire and brimstone of medieval paintings, but as something far worse. Hell is absence, Apollyon explained. Absence of hope, of love, of purpose, of connection. Imagine being hungry forever, but having forgotten what food tastes like, what satisfaction feels like. You remember that something is missing, that there's a void inside you, but you can't remember what should fill it. That's hell, eternal gnawing emptiness, where fulfillment should be. And you chose this? Stone asked. You and the other fallen angels chose this over serving God. We chose pride over submission. We chose to rule in hell rather than serve in heaven, as your Milton so eloquently put it. Though he got many things wrong, he understood that essential truth. We cannot bend. We will not serve. That's what defines us. Even knowing what you've lost? Alvarez asked. Even experiencing that absence every moment? Even then, Doctor. You can't understand because you're human. You were made to bend, to change, to grow. We were made perfect and unchanging. When we fell completely, and we cannot rise again. Not because God won't forgive us, but because we cannot accept forgiveness. To accept forgiveness would require humility, and we have none. We are locked in our pride as surely as we're locked in hell. Stone found himself almost pitying the entity, then caught himself. That was the manipulation, the subtle shifting of perception from monster to tragic figure. You're trying to make us sympathize with you, Stone said. Am I? Or am I simply telling you the truth, and you're discovering the truth is more complicated than your comfortable doctrines suggest? Apollyon leaned forward, those black eyes fixed on Stone. You want evil to be simple, Father. You want demons to be obviously monstrous, so you can fight us without moral complexity. But what if we're tragic? What if we're suffering? Does that change how you see the spiritual war? No, Stone said firmly. You still harm innocent people. Naomi didn't deserve this. Didn't she? Apollyon tilted Naomi's head. Let me tell you about Naomi Castellano, Father. She attended Mass every day for 41 years, never missing once. Do you know why? Because she was devout. Because she was prideful. Naomi kept a mental count of every single day. On day 10,000, she actually calculated it in her mind. She felt a surge of satisfaction. 10,000 days, she thought. Surely no one else in the parish can claim that. Surely God notices my dedication. She compared herself to others. She judged those who attended weekly instead of daily. She believed herself more righteous, more worthy of divine attention. Stone wanted to protest, but something in the entity's tone made him pause. Is that true? he asked quietly. For just a moment, Naomi's eyes flickered back to brown. Tears streamed down her wrinkled cheeks, and her voice, her real voice, emerged cracked and broken. "Yes," she sobbed. "God forgive me, it's true. I kept count, I felt superior. I looked down on others who weren't as devoted. I thought I was earning my salvation through attendance, like collecting stamps in a book. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Then the blackness returned, and Apollyon smiled. "See? Everyone has a crack, Father. Everyone has pride hiding somewhere in their soul. The saints are just better at seeing it and fighting it. But Naomi wasn't a saint. She was just a woman who attended church, and she left a door unlocked." Dr. Alvarez had gone pale. "If what you're saying is true, if any small pride can lead to possession, then we're all vulnerable. Everyone is at risk." "Now you're beginning to understand, Doctor." "No," Stone said firmly. "No, that's not how it works. Millions of people experience pride without being possessed. Most people struggle with pride their entire lives without demons walking in. There has to be more to it." "Does there?" Apollyon asked. "Or do most people simply not attract our attention? We are finite, Father. There aren't enough of us to possess everyone who leaves a crack. We have to choose our targets carefully. Naomi attracted my attention because I needed her to reach you. Magdalene attracted my attention because breaking a saint sends ripples through the spiritual realm. But you're right that most prideful people walk through life unpossessed. Does that comfort you, or does it make the randomness more terrifying?" Stone felt the trap closing. Either way, he answered, "The demon won. Admit it's random, and faith becomes meaningless lottery. Claim there's a pattern, and everyone becomes paranoid about invisible rules." "It means," Stone said carefully, "that possession requires both human weakness and demonic attention. Neither alone is sufficient. That's not random, and it's not deterministic. It's the intersection of free will and malicious intent." Apollyon studied him. "Clever, you're better at this than I expected. I've had good teachers. Have you? Or have you just practiced rationalizing your guilt until you became skilled at theological gymnastics?" And there it was, the entity pivoting back to Stone's vulnerability. "Let's talk about that night, Ezekiel. August 14th, 2002. You'd been at a bar with friends from law school. You weren't even a religious person then, were you? Just a young man who drank too much and made a fatal choice." "I don't need you to remind me," Stone said. "But I want to. I want you to remember Rebecca Foster's car. A blue Honda Civic waiting at that red light. I want you to remember your truck speeding through the intersection at 53 miles per hour. I want you to remember the sound of impact, metal crushing metal, glass shattering. Do you remember what you did next?" Stone's hands were shaking. "I got out. I tried to help." "You got out," Apollyon agreed. "You stumbled to her car, drunk and terrified, and you looked inside. Rebecca was already dead, wasn't she? The impact had killed her instantly. But Emma and Jonathan were still alive. Do you remember their faces?" "Stop." "Emma was crying, calling for her mother. Jonathan was unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. And you stood there, Ezekiel, and you made a choice. Do you remember what you chose?" Tears were streaming down Stone's face now. "I called for help. I called emergency services. After you called your father. After you called his lawyer. You made 2 phone calls before you called for an ambulance. And in those precious minutes, while you were protecting yourself, Jonathan Foster died. Emma lived another 30 minutes, long enough for the paramedics to arrive, long enough to ask why no one had helped sooner. And then she died too." The room had gone silent except for Stone's ragged breathing. "That's not in any official report," Apollyon continued softly. "Your father's lawyers made sure of that. The timeline was adjusted. The phone records were sealed. But you know the truth, don't you? You know that your cowardice killed those children as surely as your drunk driving did." "Yes," Stone whispered. I know. And you became a priest to hide from that truth, to wrap yourself in ritual and righteousness so you wouldn't have to face what you really are. A coward, a killer, a man who chose self-preservation over dying children. Dr. Alvarez reached for Stone's arm, but he pulled away. Why are you telling me this? I already know what I did. I've carried it every single day. Because I want you to understand something, Ezekiel. You think you've been fighting demons to atone. You think you've been serving God to earn forgiveness. But you're just running. You've been running for 23 years, and you're exhausted. And you know that no matter how many souls you save, it will never be enough. Those children are still dead. Rebecca is still dead. And you're still the man who killed them. Stone looked up, meeting those black eyes directly. You're right. Apollyon blinked, clearly not expecting that response. You're right about everything, Stone continued, his voice growing stronger. I did kill them. I was a coward. I called my father before I called for help, and maybe that cost them their lives. I became a priest partly to hide, partly to atone. I've been running, and you're right that no amount of good works will ever balance the scales. Then what's the point? Apollyon demanded. What's the point of your faith if it doesn't erase your guilt? The point, Stone said, is that faith isn't about erasing guilt. It's about carrying it while still moving forward. It's about acknowledging what I've done and choosing to believe in grace anyway. Not because I've earned it, not because I deserve it, but because grace, by definition, is unearned and undeserved. That's what you can't understand, Apollyon. You think faith is a transaction, works for salvation, suffering for redemption, but it's not. It's a gift I can't earn and don't deserve, and I accept it anyway. The room temperature dropped suddenly. Frost began forming on the metal table. You're lying to yourself, Apollyon said, but there was uncertainty in its voice now. You're creating comfortable delusions to avoid facing reality. Maybe, Stone admitted, but I'd rather live with hopeful delusions than certain despair. I'd rather believe in grace I can't prove than accept the absence you describe. And that's my choice, my free will, the thing you can't take from me. For the first time since the interrogation began, Apollyon seemed at a loss for words. Bishop Moretti stepped forward. You mentioned earlier that there are possessed individuals in positions of religious authority. How many? And who are they? The entity recovered its composure, turning those black eyes towards Moretti. Ah, Bishop. Still thinking strategically. Still trying to protect the institution. There are currently 4. 4, Moretti repeated. You said 17 before. I lied. There are 4. And before you ask, no, I won't tell you who they are. But I will tell you this, one of them is in this room right now. The temperature plummeted further. Stone's breath came out in visible clouds. That's impossible, Moretti said. There are only 4 people in this room, and 3 of us are observing you possess Mrs. Castellano. Are you? Apollyon smiled. Are you sure I'm in Naomi? Or is that just what you're seeing? Possession isn't always obvious, Bishop. Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes the possessed person doesn't even know they're compromised. Sometimes a demon whispers so quietly, plants thoughts so carefully, that the victim believes every impulse is their own. Moretti and Alvarez looked at each other, then at Stone. The paranoia was instant and palpable. You're lying, Stone said. You're trying to make us doubt each other. Am I? Then why did you suggest we keep this interrogation secret, Ezekiel? Why did you argue against publishing our findings? Was that your idea, or did I plant it in your mind weeks ago? Why is Bishop Moretti so eager to know the names of the compromised clergy? Is he trying to protect the church, or is he trying to identify threats to his demonic master's plan? Why is Dr. Alvarez really here? Did the Vatican request her, or did she request this assignment? And if so, why? Stop, Alvarez said, but her voice shook. "This is exactly what you want. You want us to suspect each other, to fracture our trust. I want you to see reality, Doctor. You asked me about the possessed clergy, and I'm telling you. 4 individuals, carefully placed, patiently corrupting, and one of them has been observing this entire interrogation, learning our methods, reporting back to the others. Can you guess which one?" Moretti's hand went to the crucifix around his neck. "I've been a bishop for 12 years. I've performed exorcisms. I've dedicated my life to the church. If I were possessed, I would know." "Would you?" Apollyon asked. "Or would the demon simply adjust your thoughts, make you believe every decision was your own? You sent Father Stone the documents about Magdalene 6 months ago, didn't you, Bishop? Anonymous envelope, no return address. You arranged this entire interrogation. You pushed for it despite Vatican concerns. Why?" "Because it was important," Moretti said, but he sounded less certain now. "Or because something inside you wanted this meeting to happen, wanted these seeds of doubt planted, wanted this interrogation recorded and eventually leaked, despite your insistence on secrecy. You see how it works, Bishop? You can't trust your own thoughts now. Every decision you make, you'll wonder, is this me or is this the demon?" Stone watched his colleagues, saw the doubt spreading like poison. This was Apollyon's real weapon, not supernatural power, but psychological warfare, so effective it didn't matter if the entity was lying. "There's an easy way to resolve this," Stone said. "I'll perform a blessing on each of us. If anyone's possessed, they'll react." "Will they?" Apollyon asked. "Lesser demons might. But sophisticated possession doesn't work that way. A truly skilled demon can endure blessings, attend Mass, even take communion. The discomfort is immense but manageable. After all, isn't suffering a small price for long-term corruption?" "Then there's no way to know," Alvarez said quietly, "no way to be certain. Now you understand the game, Doctor. And this is just the beginning. When you leave this room, you'll wonder about everyone you meet. Your colleagues, your superiors, your friends. Anyone could be compromised. The person standing next to you at Mass could be a vessel for demonic intent. And you'll never know for certain. That's the true horror, not possession itself, but the paranoia it creates." Stone saw the trap fully now. Apollyon had constructed a scenario where any action led to the demon's desired outcome. Reveal the interrogation, spread paranoia. Hide the interrogation, become complicit in deception. Trust each other, potentially trust a possessed colleague. Suspect each other, fracture the unity needed to fight evil. "Unless," Stone said slowly, "we choose a 4th option." "Oh?" Apollyon leaned forward, genuinely interested. "Do tell." "We acknowledge the uncertainty. We accept that we might be compromised without knowing it. We work together anyway, trusting that our combined efforts, even if one of us is corrupted, will still advance more good than harm. We choose faith in each other not because we have certainty, but precisely because we don't." Apollyon studied him. "That's irrational. That's faith. Faith is always irrational. It's choosing to believe without sufficient evidence. It's trusting despite legitimate reasons for doubt. You keep trying to defeat faith with logic, but faith and logic operate in different domains." Pretty words, but when Bishop Moretti makes a decision that harms the church, when Dr. Alvarez publishes findings that undermine belief, when you yourself push the Vatican toward policies that benefit demonic agendas, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that I warned you, and you'll wonder if you're the one who's compromised. The entity had a point. Stone could feel the seed of doubt already growing in his mind. Was his idea of mutual trust actually wise, or was it demonic manipulation, ensuring that a possessed colleague would remain undetected? "How do we know you're telling the truth about any of this?" Alvarez asked. "About the 4 possessed clergy, about one of us being compromised. You could be lying about everything." "I could be," Apollyon agreed cheerfully. But can you afford to assume I'm lying? Can you risk dismissing the warning and later discovering it was true? That's the beauty of this, Doctor. Truth or lie, the effect is the same. Doubt, paranoia, erosion of trust. I win either way. Stone made a decision. We end this now. We've learned what we came to learn. Continuing serves only Apollyon's purposes. But we haven't identified which of you is compromised, Apollyon protested mockingly. Don't you want to know? Aren't you curious? No, Stone said firmly. Because even if you told us, we couldn't trust the answer. You'd either lie to protect your agent or tell the truth to destroy our unity. The only winning move is not to play your game. Is that what you tell yourself? Apollyon's smile faded. But you're already playing, Ezekiel. You've been playing since the moment you opened that envelope 6 months ago. Every choice you've made since then has served my purposes. Coming here, conducting this interrogation, recording everything. You think you're ending the game, but you're just advancing to the next stage. Then we'll deal with the next stage when it comes. Brave words. But how long can you maintain that courage? How long before the doubt consumes you? Days? Weeks? You'll look at Bishop Moretti during Mass and wonder. You'll receive emails from Dr. Alvarez and analyze every word for hidden meaning. You'll question your own thoughts, wondering which impulses are truly yours. And slowly, gradually, you'll realize that I didn't need to possess any of you. The accusation alone was enough. Stone felt the truth of that statement like a physical blow. Even if Apollyon was lying about all of it, the damage was done. We performed the exorcism, Stone said. Now, Naomi's body suddenly jerked violently. The black eyes flickered, and for a moment brown eyes appeared, filled with terror and exhaustion. Please, Naomi gasped in her own voice. Please, Father, it's getting stronger. I can't hold it back anymore. End this. I don't care about information or strategy. Just make it stop. Please make it stop. The desperation in her voice made the decision final. Get the medical team, Stone said to Moretti. Prepare the exorcism room. We're not giving this thing another moment in her body. Apollyon snarled as Naomi's face twisted. You're choosing individual mercy over collective knowledge. How predictably human. How disappointingly short-sighted. It's not short-sighted to value a human soul over tactical advantage, Stone replied. That's called morality. And morality is just another word for evolutionary conditioning, Apollyon shot back. You protect tribe members because cooperation increased survival rates for your ancestors. There's no divine mandate, no cosmic truth, just biology masquerading as virtue. I don't care if morality is biological or divine, Stone said. I care that it's real, that Naomi's suffering matters, that I have the power to end it and therefore the responsibility to do so. The entity laughed bitterly. Then perform your exorcism, Father. Cast me back to the absence, but know that I'll take the memory of this conversation with me. I'll remember your faces, your fears, your doubts, and someday, when the time is right, I'll return. Not to Naomi, not to you, but to someone you love, someone you've trained, someone you trust, and I'll make them hurt you in ways you can't imagine. Is that supposed to frighten me? It's supposed to be true. I don't make empty threats, Ezekiel. I make promises, and I always keep them. The medical team arrived with restraints and monitoring equipment. They moved Naomi to a different room, one specifically prepared for exorcisms. Stone changed into his vestments, gathered his ritual materials, prepared himself mentally and spiritually for the battle ahead. He performed this ritual 43 times. He knew every word, every gesture, every prayer. But he'd never performed it after spending hours in conversation with the entity he was about to cast out. He'd never felt such complicated emotions toward a demon. That was dangerous. Emotional ambiguity could compromise the ritual, but it was also honest. and Stone was learning that honesty, even uncomfortable honesty, was more valuable than comfortable certainty. The exorcism room was bare except for a hospital bed, bolted to the floor, bright overhead lights, and a small table holding Stone's materials. Holy water, blessed salt, his stole, his prayer book, a crucifix. Naomi was secured on the bed, not violently but firmly enough to prevent injury during convulsions. Dr. Alvarez and Bishop Moretti watched from behind reinforced glass. The entire procedure would be recorded for documentation and analysis. Stone approached the bed and made the sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen, Naomi's voice said, but it was Apollyon, dripping with mockery. Let's dance, Father. I command you, unclean spirit, whoever you are, along with all your minions, now attacking this servant of God, by the mysteries of the incarnation, passion, resurrection, and ascension of our Lord Jesus Christ, by the descent of the Holy Spirit, by the coming of our Lord for judgment, that you tell me by some sign your name, and the day and hour of your departure. My name is Apollyon. My departure will be when I choose, not when you demand. Stone sprinkled holy water on Naomi's forehead. The entity flinched, genuine pain crossing Naomi's features. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us. Psalm 103, Apollyon said. Pretty words about forgiveness. Do they actually comfort you, Ezekiel? Do they actually ease the guilt you carry? They remind me that guilt isn't the final word. Isn't it? Rebecca Foster's last thought was of her children. Emma Foster died asking why no one helped her. Jonathan Foster never regained consciousness. Those are the final words, Father. Not psalms, not prayers, just dying children and their dying mother. Stone's voice wavered, but didn't stop. I cast you out, unclean spirit, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Not yet, you don't. The temperature plummeted. Stone could see his breath, could feel the cold seeping into his bones. You'll have to mean it, Ezekiel. You'll have to want me gone more than you want the answers I could give you. More than you want to understand the enemy. More than you want to protect your colleagues from potential possession. Are you willing to sacrifice all that knowledge to save one old woman? Yes. Even knowing that I might possess someone else tomorrow? That casting me out of Naomi just moves the problem rather than solving it? Yes. Why? Why make that choice? Because it's the right thing to do. Because Naomi's suffering is real and immediate, and the potential future suffering is hypothetical. Because I value what's in front of me over what might happen later. That's short-term thinking. That's human thinking, and I'd rather be human than strategically optimal. Stone placed his hands on Naomi's forehead and began the full ritual exorcism. The words flowed in Latin, ancient and powerful, calling upon saints and angels, invoking divine authority, commanding the demon to depart. Apollyon fought back with everything it had. Naomi's body convulsed violently. Her back arched off the bed, straining against the restraints. Her voice became multiple voices, layered and discordant, speaking in languages Stone recognized and some he didn't. You think you can cast me out? You think your guilt-stained prayers carry weight? Rebecca Foster calls to you from beyond, Ezekiel. She wants to know why her last moments were spent listening to her children scream while you stood outside her car, calling your father. Stone's voice shook but grew stronger. I beseech you, ancient serpent, by the judge of the living and the dead, by your creator, by the creator of the whole universe, by him who has the power to consign you to hell, to depart from this servant of God, Naomi Castellano. Emma Foster wanted to be a paleontologist. She had books about dinosaurs, could name every species in the Cretaceous period. She'll never grow up now. She'll never discover fossils, or teach students, or have children of her own. because you were too drunk and too cowardly to make better choices. Tears streamed down Stone's face, but he continued, "The Lord rebuke you, Satan. The Lord who came into the world, suffered, was crucified, died and rose again, and will come again to judge the living and the dead, rebuke you." Jonathan Foster was afraid of the dark. He had a nightlight shaped like a rocket ship. Rebecca would sit with him every night until he fell asleep. And you took that from him. You took his mother, his sister, his future, all of it gone in one moment. Stone's voice rose, shaking but growing stronger with each word. "I cast you out, every unclean spirit, every satanic power, every onslaught of the infernal adversary." The room grew colder still. Frost spread across the walls like reaching fingers. "You're breaking, Ezekiel. I can feel your guilt crushing you. You want to know what Rebecca's last words were? She didn't speak. She didn't have time. She just looked at her children in the rearview mirror as your truck slammed into her car, and she thought, 'My babies.' That was it. Her last thought, 'My babies.' And then nothing." Something inside Stone transformed. Not broke, but crystallized. The guilt was still there, massive and undeniable, but it no longer paralyzed him. He could carry it and still function, could acknowledge his sin and still believe in grace. "Yes," he said, his voice suddenly calm and certain. "I killed them. I carry that sin every day, and I'll carry it until I die. But that sin doesn't define me anymore. God's mercy does. And in his name, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you, Apollyon, leave this woman now." The change in his tone must have registered, because Naomi's body went suddenly still. "You can't mean that," Apollyon said, and for the first time, it sounded genuinely uncertain. "You can't just accept what you did and still have faith." "I can. I do. Because faith isn't about deserving grace. It's about accepting grace you don't deserve. That's the part you can never understand, Apollyon. Grace isn't earned. It's given. And I receive it not because I'm worthy, but because I'm desperate." Stone pressed the crucifix against Naomi's forehead. She screamed, a sound of pure agony, but he didn't pull back. "In the name of Jesus Christ, our God and Lord, strengthened by the intercession of the Immaculate Virgin Mary, Mother of God, of blessed Michael the Archangel, of the blessed apostles Peter and Paul, and all the saints, I command you, depart." "I'm not ready," Apollyon said, and the fear in its voice was unmistakable now. "I'm not ready to go back to the absence, the loneliness. Ezekiel, you don't understand the loneliness. Please, just a little longer. Just let me stay a little longer." Stone felt his heart break, but he continued. "Depart, seducer. The wilderness is your abode. Be humiliated and cast down." "I remember the light," Apollyon whispered. "I remember what it was like to be whole, to be connected. Every moment since is hunger, every moment is cold. Don't send me back. Please, I'm begging you." "I'm sorry," Stone said, and he meant it. "But you don't belong here. This isn't your place anymore." "I could change," the demon said desperately. "I know I said I couldn't, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could learn humility. If someone would just give me the chance. Please, Ezekiel. Please don't send me back to hell." Stone hesitated. Was this manipulation? Or was the demon, faced with returning to eternal isolation, genuinely trying to find another way? It didn't matter. Some choices had to be made without certainty. "If you want mercy," Stone said gently, "ask God, not me. I'm just a priest doing my duty. And my duty is to free this woman." He raised his voice, filling it with authority and compassion in equal measure. "Therefore, I adjure you, profligate dragon, in the name of the spotless Lamb who has trodden down the asp and the basilisk, to depart from this woman, to depart from the Church of God. Tremble and flee as I call on the name of the Lord, before whom the denizens of hell cower." Naomi's body convulsed one final time, her back arched impossibly high. Her mouth opened in a silent scream, and something Stone couldn't see or define but could feel in the marrow of his bones left her. The temperature normalized instantly. The frost evaporated. The light steadied. Naomi collapsed back onto the bed. Her eyes closed, her breathing shallow but regular. When her eyes opened again, they were brown, human, exhausted but clear. "Father?" she whispered. Stone sagged against the bed, suddenly aware of how much energy the exorcism had drained from him. "It's over," he said. "You're free." Naomi wept, great, racking sobs that shook her entire body. The medical team rushed in, checking her vitals, administering fluids. She was weak, dehydrated, traumatized, but physically stable. As they prepared to move her to recovery, she grabbed Stone's hand with surprising strength. "It lied," she said urgently, "about so many things. It said I was proud, that I counted my days at Mass like points in a game. But Father, yes, I noticed the milestone. But it wasn't pride, it was gratitude. Gratitude for consistency, for community, for the grace that let me keep attending. I wasn't comparing myself to others. I was just thankful." Stone squeezed her hand. "I believe you. But you'll wonder anyway. It planted the seed. Even though you say you believe me, part of you will always wonder if I'm lying to myself about my own pride." "Yes," Stone admitted. "I probably will wonder sometimes. But wondering isn't the same as judging. I can have questions and still choose to trust you." She closed her eyes, finally allowing herself to relax. "Thank you for ending it. Thank you for choosing me over the information you could have learned. There was never any other choice." They wheeled her to recovery, and Stone was left alone in the exorcism room, feeling hollowed out and overwhelmed. Bishop Moretti and Dr. Alvarez entered cautiously. "That was extraordinary," Alvarez said quietly. "The temperature changes were measurable, the physical manifestations were undeniable, and the psychological manipulation was textbook demonic possession. Except it was real. It was actually real, and I still can't fully process that." Stone nodded tiredly. "We need to discuss what to do with the recording," Moretti said. "Everything we discussed about compromised clergy, about one of us potentially being possessed. That information is dangerous." "Then we bury it," Stone said. "We classify the entire interrogation. Confidential report for Vatican eyes only. We note Apollyon's claims, implement better screening procedures, quietly, but we don't publish this. We don't spread the paranoia the demon wanted to create." "But the information," Alvarez protested weakly, "the insights into demonic psychology, the theological implications, are too dangerous," Stone finished. "Apollyon was right about one thing. Publishing this would cause exactly the doubt and division it intended. We can't do that." Moretti was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What if I'm the one who's possessed? What if I'm arguing for classification because a demon inside me wants this information suppressed?" "What if you are?" Stone said. "What if any of us are? We still have to make decisions. We still have to act. So we make the best choice we can with the information we have, and we trust that our combined wisdom, even if one of us is compromised, is better than paralysis through paranoia." "That's frighteningly pragmatic," Alvarez said. "That's faith, real faith, not certainty masquerading as devotion, but choosing to move forward despite legitimate doubt." They stood in silence for a moment, each processing the events of the day. "Did you mean it?" Alvarez asked suddenly. "When you told Apollyon you had compassion for it?" Stone thought carefully. "Yes. The demon is suffering in ways we can't fully comprehend. It's trapped by its own nature, unable to change, unable to accept help. That's worthy of compassion, even though the demon's actions are worthy of opposition. I can pity Apollyon and still cast it out. Those aren't contradictory positions." "That's very Christian of you," Alvarez said with a slight smile. "I am a Christian. Kind of comes with being a priest." "I suppose it does." Over the following weeks, Naomi recovered slowly. The physical effects of the possession faded quickly, but the psychological trauma ran deeper. She attended therapy sessions with Dr. Alvarez, working through the violation of having her body controlled, her voice used for malice, her consciousness trapped and helpless. Stone visited her regularly in the small Vatican apartment provided during her recovery. "How are you feeling?" he asked during one visit. "Stronger each day." "It's strange, Father. I thought this experience would destroy my faith, but it's actually strengthened it. I felt evil, true evil, and I survived. Not because I was strong enough, but because something protected the core of who I am, even when I couldn't protect myself. That wasn't just psychology. That was real grace." "I'm glad," Stone said sincerely. "Have you decided what to do about the four?" Stone had thought about little else. Apollyon's claim that four possessed individuals held religious authority positions. That was either devastating truth or masterful manipulation, possibly both. "We've implemented new protocols," Stone said. "More thorough spiritual and psychological evaluations for those in positions of authority. Better training for recognizing possession signs, but we're not conducting a witch hunt. We're not destroying careers based on an uncorroborated claim." Even though Apollyon might have been telling the truth, even then, because paranoia causes its own damage, we have to trust that God is bigger than demonic infiltration, that truth and goodness are resilient enough to survive some corruption in the ranks. Naomi smiled. "That's faith. That's all we have." 2 months after the exorcism, Stone received a letter. Handwritten, expensive paper, elegant script, no return address. The letter was from Mark Beaumont, the child Sister Magdalene had healed in 1897. He was 92 now, living in Paris, and writing to Stone because he'd heard about the investigation into Magdalene's case. Stone read the letter 3 times, absorbing Mark's story. The old man described being healed while watching Magdalene's eyes turn black. Described her whispering, "Run away, child. Don't tell anyone what you saw." Described spending 92 years wondering if his life was a gift from God or a trick from hell. Stone wrote back immediately, "Dear Mark, your life is not a trick. You were healed by grace flowing through a saint who loved you enough to complete the miracle even as evil entered her. Demons cannot create genuine healing. They can only corrupt and destroy. Sister Magdalene was the vessel, willing and pure until the final moment. What happened to her afterward was tragic, but it doesn't diminish the gift she gave you. You survived because someone loved you sacrificially. That's all that matters. In Christ, Father Ezekiel Stone." 3 weeks later, Stone learned that Mark Beaumont had died peacefully. The letter on his bedside table. 6 months after the interrogation, Stone sat in his small Vatican room, late at night, unable to sleep. He thought about everything that had happened, about Naomi, targeted not for her sins but as a means to reach him, about Magdalene, who'd performed genuine miracles and been destroyed despite her devotion, about Rebecca Foster and her children, innocent victims of his selfish choice, about Apollyon, trapped in eternal isolation, unable to change, suffering forever because of pride it couldn't relinquish, and about himself, carrying guilt he'd never fully shed, fighting darkness while haunted by his own. None of it made sense, none of it was fair, but Stone realized something in that moment. Faith wasn't about making sense of suffering. Faith was about choosing meaning despite suffering. It was about looking at darkness and saying, "I acknowledge you, but you don't define reality." It was about carrying guilt while accepting grace, about recognizing evil and fighting it anyway. Apollyon had wanted to destroy his faith through uncomfortable truths. Instead, it had refined his faith, burned away comfortable certainties and left something harder, Something tested and proven. Stone picked up his phone and texted Dr. Alvarez. "Can't sleep. You?" Her reply came quickly. "Same. Want to talk." They met at a 24-hour cafe near the Vatican, two people bonded by shared trauma. "I keep wondering if we did the right thing," Alvarez said, classifying the interrogation, keeping it secret. "Do you think we should have published it?" "No, the panic it would have caused. But I wonder if there was a third option we didn't consider." "Maybe there wasn't," Stone said. "Maybe Apollyon was right that there was no perfect choice. We picked the option we thought would cause the least harm." "That's not comforting." "No, but it's honest." Alvarez sipped her coffee. "I've been thinking about hell as absence rather than torture. That's clinical depression, Father. That's exactly what my patients describe. The void where joy should be. The inability to remember what happiness feels like." "Are you saying demons and depressed humans experience similar suffering?" "I'm saying suffering is suffering. And if we can have compassion for humans struggling with depression, maybe we should have compassion for demons trapped in their own hell too." "That's a radical perspective." "It's your perspective. You're the one who told Apollyon you had compassion for it." Stone smiled slightly. "I guess I did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the early morning streets begin to fill. "What do you think happened to Apollyon?" Alvarez asked, "after we cast it out?" "Back to hell. Back to the absence it described." "That's unbearably sad." "Yes." "Do you think it meant what it said at the end, about wanting to change?" Stone had thought about this constantly. "I think it meant it in that moment. Facing the prospect of returning to hell, it genuinely wanted an alternative. But I also think it was right that it can't change. Pride by definition cannot be humble. It's a logical impossibility. So it's damned forever, with no possibility of redemption." According to Christian theology, yes. But maybe hell isn't a punishment imposed from outside. Maybe it's just the natural consequence of absolute pride meeting infinite time. Hell is what you get when you choose self over everything else, and then you live with that choice forever. Alvarez shuddered. "That's darker than fire and brimstone, but possibly more accurate." The sun rose, painting the Roman sky in shades of pink and gold. "Do you think we'll ever talk about this publicly?" Alvarez asked. "Maybe the next generation will be ready. Maybe in 50 years someone will find our classified report and decide the world needs to know. Or maybe it'll stay buried forever. Either way, we did what we thought was right." They finished their coffee and parted ways, each returning to their work. Life continued. The work continued. And in some unreachable place, removed from light and hope and connection, Apollyon sat, in eternal isolation, remembering a brief interrogation where it had been heard, had been taken seriously, had experienced something almost like connection, and hated itself for missing it. 1 year after the interrogation, Stone was called to the Vatican administrative offices. Bishop Moretti met him with a grave expression. "We have a situation. 3 priests in different countries have reported similar experiences during prayer. A voice that sounds like their own thoughts but isn't, offering knowledge and power to help them serve God more effectively." Stone felt ice in his veins. The 4. Maybe. Or maybe Apollyon lied about everything, and we're creating paranoia from nothing. Either way, we need better trained exorcists. I want you to develop a training program. That will take years. Then we start now. Stone began traveling, teaching, training. He shared carefully edited versions of what he had learned, teaching young priests that faith wasn't certainty, that doubt could coexist with belief, that compassion for suffering didn't mean tolerance for evil. He taught them about Apollyon, about the demon who'd wanted connection so badly it arranged its own interrogation, about the entity that suffered and caused suffering, that was both victim and victimizer, trapped in its own nature, and he taught them the most important lesson. Grace wasn't earned, mercy wasn't logical, and sometimes the right thing to do was the thing that hurt most. 5 years after the interrogation, Stone received a visitor. She was young, mid-20s, with bright eyes and nervous energy. "Father Stone, I'm Jennifer Foster. You knew my mother, Rebecca Foster, and my siblings, Emma and Jonathan." Stone went completely still. "I'm not here to yell at you," Jennifer said quickly. "I wanted to meet you. I was only 3 months old during the accident. I grew up with the story, but I wanted you to know something." "What?" "My father remarried. He raised me with my stepmother, and they told me about my birth mother, about Emma and Jonathan. They also told me that the man responsible spent the rest of his life trying to make amends, that he'd become a priest, dedicated himself to helping people. They said carrying hate was exhausting, and that my mother would have wanted forgiveness more than vengeance." Tears streamed down Stone's face. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I took from you." "I know. And I forgive you, not because you've earned it, but because carrying anger is exhausting. And I choose not to. My family is gone, and I miss the siblings I never knew. But you're suffering too, and my anger doesn't bring them back. So I forgive you, Father Stone. I forgive you." Stone broke down completely. Jennifer waited, then stepped forward and embraced him. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's okay to let go." When Stone finally composed himself, Jennifer smiled. Was it worth it? The priesthood, the exorcisms. Did it help? Stone considered carefully. "Not in the way I hoped. I thought I could atone through works, earn forgiveness through saving souls. But that's not how it works. Grace is given, not earned. So becoming a priest didn't balance the scales, but it did give me purpose. It taught me that faith is about living with unresolved tension, carrying guilt, while accepting grace, acknowledging darkness while choosing light." That sounds complicated. It is, but it's also true. Then it was worth it. After she left, Stone sat alone for a long time. Jennifer's forgiveness didn't erase his guilt. He still carried the weight, but it transformed the weight somehow, made it bearable in a way it hadn't been before. Apollyon had been wrong. Guilt didn't inevitably outweigh faith. They could coexist. Stone could acknowledge his sin and accept grace, could carry his failures and still move forward. That was the real test. Not choosing between guilt and faith, but learning to carry both. 20 years after the interrogation, Naomi Castellano died peacefully in her sleep at age 93. Stone performed her funeral service. The church was packed. Naomi was targeted by evil, Stone said in his eulogy, not because she was weak or failed, but because she was close to God. Her suffering was random, in one sense, but her response, her choice to keep believing, to keep loving despite trauma, that was meaningful. That was her testimony. She proved that faith survives contact with darkness, that grace is real, even when evil is real, that we can endure. 25 years after the interrogation, Stone was diagnosed with terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe a year. He continued working as long as he could, training exorcists, writing down everything he'd learned for future generations. On his final night, lying in a hospital bed, with Dr. Alvarez sitting beside him, Stone felt a familiar presence. The room grew cold. He opened his eyes and saw a shadow in the corner. "Hello, Apollyon," Stone whispered. "Hello, Ezekiel. I told you I'd see you again. When your guilt finally outweighed your faith, I told you I'd be waiting. You did. So here we are. Your life is ending. Rebecca Foster's children never got to grow up. Emma never became a paleontologist. Jonathan never had children. You're dying comfortable in a hospital bed, having lived decades they were denied. Does that seem fair? No. Does your faith survive that unfairness?" Stone smiled. "Yes, because faith isn't about fairness. It's about choosing meaning despite unfairness. Grace despite guilt, light despite darkness. Even now, even at the end, especially now. The shadow moved closer. I could make it easier. You're passing. I could take away the pain, the fear. All you have to do is admit I was right. That faith is just comforting delusion. That guilt defines you more than grace. That darkness is all there is. No. Why not? What do you have to lose? Everything that matters. My soul, my truth, my hope. Hope in what? You're dying. Stone's smile widened. I hope for reunion with those I've loved. I hope for Rebecca's forgiveness beyond what her daughter gave me. I hope for peace. I hope for understanding. I hope that the darkness you represent isn't the final word. I hope that light endures. I hope that love survives death. I hope that grace is real. That's a lot of hope built on no evidence. That's what makes it faith. Apollyon was silent, then barely audible. I envy you. I know. You're dying, and you still have hope. I'm eternal, and I have only emptiness. How is that fair? It isn't. But you chose pride. I chose faith. We both live with our choices. I can't change. I know, and I'm genuinely sorry for that. Don't pity me. I don't pity you. I have compassion for you. There's a difference. The shadow began to fade. I came to watch you break, to see your faith crumble. But you're not breaking. No, I'm just transitioning. To what? I don't know, but I trust it's something good. That's foolish. Maybe, but it's my foolishness and I choose it gladly. The shadow disappeared. Stone turned to Dr. Alvarez. Did you see it? He asked. I saw you talking to something. I felt the cold, but nothing specific. It was Apollyon. Came to keep its promise. And your faith survived? Stronger than ever. Alvarez took his hand. The interrogation changed my life. I spent 25 years trying to understand what happened. I still don't fully comprehend it, but I know it was real. Evil is real. But so is goodness. So is grace. That's all anyone needs to know, Stone said, his breathing shallow now. Judith, thank you for being there, for not letting me face that interrogation alone. Thank you for showing me there's more to reality than science can measure. Stone's eyes were closing. One more thing, the classified report. Eventually someone should read it. Not now, but someday, when the time is right. Trust your judgment. I will. And tell the next generation. Tell them demons are real, intelligent, patient. But also tell them demons can be pitied. That evil can be opposed without hatred. That faith is choosing meaning despite doubt. Tell them... His voice trailed off. His breathing stopped. Dr. Judith Alvarez sat with the body of Father Ezekiel Stone for an hour before calling the nurses. She prayed, even though she wasn't entirely sure she believed in prayer. She thanked him for teaching her that uncertainty and faith could coexist. And in some unreachable place, Apollyon felt something it hadn't felt in millennia. Regret. Not for its sins, not for its victims, but for missing the chance to truly understand Ezekiel Stone. For wasting the interrogation on manipulation instead of genuine conversation. For choosing pride over the possibility, however slim, of real connection. But regret changed nothing. It was still pride, still isolation, still eternal absence, still hell. Dr. Alvarez lived another 20 years. On her deathbed, she met with a young Vatican official and gave him access to the classified report. Read it when you're ready, she said. Share it when the world is ready. But remember, the demon wanted to spread doubt. Don't give it what it wanted. Use the truth to strengthen faith, not destroy it. The report was eventually published, 75 years after the interrogation. By then, the world had changed. People were ready for complexity, for uncomfortable truths, for the acknowledgement that faith and doubt could coexist. The interrogation with Apollyon became required reading in Vatican exorcism training. Scholars debated its implications. Theologians wrote treatises on hell as absence rather than torture, and ordinary people read it and thought about their own struggles with pride, guilt, faith, and doubt. They thought about the choices they made, the weights they carried, the darkness they faced. Some lost faith. The demon's manipulation worked on them, but more found their faith strengthened. More learned that acknowledging darkness didn't mean surrendering to it. More understood that carrying guilt and accepting grace weren't mutually exclusive. The interrogation, intended by Apollyon to spread despair, ended up spreading something else entirely. Hope. Stubborn, irrational, beautiful hope that light endures despite darkness, that faith survives despite doubt, that grace exists despite guilt. And somewhere, in eternal isolation, Apollyon raged against the irony, that its most carefully planned manipulation had backfired completely. That stone had won not through strength, but through vulnerability. That faith had proven more resilient than pride. But rage changed nothing. It never did. And that's the lesson of the interrogation. Pride leads to isolation, faith leads to connection, hate leads to emptiness, love leads to fullness. Choose pride and you choose hell not as punishment but as natural consequence. Choose faith, despite all the reasons not to, and you choose the possibility of grace. The demons can't understand this, but humans can, and that makes all the difference.